All right, welcome. What we're doing today is filing a kind of planetary field report. We're looking at this fascinating idea that all the huge changes we're seeing everywhere, in energy and information, you name it, they aren't just random trends. They might actually be signs of a deep, fundamental shift in how our entire civilization operates. So let's dive in and look at the evidence. And this quote, it really nails it. The biggest roadblocks we're hitting aren't about a lack of technology. They're about us. They're psychological. It's all about our collective mindset. Are we still playing by the old rules, operating from a place of scarcity and fear? Or are we, just maybe, starting to build a world based on what's actually possible? Okay, so to really get our heads around just how big this change is, we need to set a baseline. We need to start by diagnosing what we could call the day two condition. Think of it as a civilization whose entire operating system, its entire logic, is built on one single idea: scarcity. You can see the two logics laid out right here. In a day two world where you believe everything is limited, competition and extraction, they actually make a weird kind of sense. It's a zero-sum game, right? For me to win, you have to lose. But as we start moving into day three, a completely different logic starts to take over. When the things we need most become abundant, cooperation and regeneration suddenly become the smarter, way more effective strategies. And we're seeing this shift happen in real time. So if this great transition is really happening, we should be able to see it, right? There should be clear evidence. So what are the observable symptoms? Let's get into the key data points, the ones that are signaling the breakdown of that old scarcity-based world. And that's the core question, isn't it? To move this whole idea beyond just an interesting theory, we need to find concrete, measurable evidence. What are the actual real-world signs that this transition is happening right now? Here are some of the big ones. And each one of these points to a really deep structural change. I mean, take the cost of renewable energy. That's a master signal. Energy underpins literally everything. So when it becomes abundant, that sends ripple effects through the entire system. And that last point is so crucial. When our biggest problems aren't a genuine lack of stuff, but are actually caused by our outdated systems, well, that's a huge sign we've crossed a major threshold. This symbol, this concept of being close to zero, this might be the single most powerful force driving this entire transition. It's the collapse of something called marginal cost. All that means is the cost of making one more of something. Just think about it for a second. Once you've built a solar panel, what's the cost of producing one more unit of electricity? It's basically zero. Once you've written a piece of software, what's the cost for one more person to download it? Zero. When the cost of producing more of our absolute essentials, like energy, information, and pretty soon food, drops to near zero, the entire economic model that we built on scarcity just starts to fall apart. Now, this isn't just some abstract idea floating around in the clouds. It's being physically built. A whole new infrastructure is emerging all around us. You can think of it like a brand new circulatory and nervous system for the planet, one designed to support a much more complex and integrated world. So check this out. This table maps out the evolutionary path for our most basic life support systems. For energy, food, and water, you can see this incredibly clear trajectory. We're moving from the scarcity-driven models of day two through this messy transitional phase of day three, and we're heading toward a future, let's call it day four, where these things become stable universal utilities, as available as the air we breathe. And it's not just the big three. We're seeing the exact same pattern playing out across other essential systems, like housing, healthcare, and digital access. The engines driving it are the same. Automation and decentralization are pushing costs down and access up. They're all on the same path, moving from being scarce commodities to becoming universal utilities. So, okay, when you pull back and you look at all these different data points together, four really clear patterns just pop right out. We are moving from extraction to regeneration, from human labor to automation, from centralized control to distributed networks, and from unequal access to universal availability. See, this isn't just a random collection of trends, it's a coherent, directional process, a metamorphosis. So what happens when all these new infrastructures and systems start to connect and integrate on a global scale? Well, we start to see something entirely new emerge. Humanity starts to function less like a collection of competing tribes and more like a single, coherent planetary species. Now, what do we actually mean by a planetary species? It's really important to be clear here. This isn't about a single world government or losing all our unique cultures. Not at all. It's a functional definition. It's the stage where our essential systems for survival just become so integrated that it's simply more effective and logical to operate as a coordinated whole than it is to keep acting like competing parts. And this leads to the most profound shift of all. And it's not technological, it's psychological. It's in our heads. When our automated systems can pretty much guarantee the basics of life for everyone, the core question of human purpose can finally change. We get to move from a society that's organized around the question, how do I survive, to one that can finally ask, how can I contribute? This chart just visualizes that massive psychological shift. In a day two world, a world defined by scarcity, fear is a pretty rational response, right? But that fear limits our ability to cooperate on a large scale. But as the infrastructure of abundance in day three starts to lower those existential fears, the whole dynamic flips. Cooperation becomes the most logical and effective strategy, and that unlocks a whole new level of human possibility. It is so crucial to understand this. What we're observing, it isn't an endgame. The collapse of the old, scarcity-based world isn't the end of the story. As this quote suggests, it's just the opening act. It's the messy, turbulent, but absolutely necessary prelude to whatever comes next for us as a species. And so this whole field report leaves us right here with this incredible, mind-bending question. Once the daily struggle for survival is no longer the central organizing principle of our civilization, what does a maturing planetary species choose to become? That is the story that is only just beginning.